know a lot of people. There was a lot of backlash about how the Pokédex was being cut down for the Generation 8 games.
Hmm.
But then I realized, and today or yesterday, Pokemon released a video of an encounter with all now 1008 Pokemon that are in Pokemon, and I was like, oh, this is a logistical nightmare. And there's somebody that has a whole video about how Pokemon is a logistical nightmare. But could you imagine with where graphics are today, even though Pokemon games aren't stunning, they are still way better than they were on handhelds, and having to model 1008 individual things with different attacks and everything,
Hmm.
that's a lot of work. um I understand why some things would have to be cut. I get it. uh so I don't know. I think that that's one of those things that I am kind of interested in, is just like, where do you think the turning point was? Where do you think that it felt like a lot of games shifted their focus away from the gameplay first mindset that a lot of, I would say, probably like the 2000 to 2011, 2012 mindset seemed focused on, like the one of the biggest decades for gaming, I would say, was the 2000s to the 2010. What year specifically do you pinpoint that at, though? If it's later, if it's earlier?
um, could you please repeat that question?
Yes. Um. So, like I was saying, uh, gaming. Everybody always talks about gaming feels different. Gaming feels just
Hmm.
weird. And I think that it feels like a lot of games forgot the focus on fun is first, and gameplay first.
Hmm.
And what year do you think that happened? Like, what was like, if you look back at all your favorite games, what was the year that you could put a hard cutoff and say, since this point, the releases of high quality gameplay, gameplay focused games, from large companies, obviously indie creators are always going to make crazy cool stuff, but it feels like AAA publishers stopped putting out really high quality, cool, good games at this year. What year would that be?
Definitely the PS3 generation.
The seventh generation,
Yeah.
right before the PS4 and the Xbox One.
Hmm.
So like 2012 ish.
Yeah, that's where I
Yep.
started noticing a significant drop in games I didn't like. Um, well, yeah, because there was a lot of games coming out like Heavy Rain and stuff that were too cinematic. You didn't really see
Hmm.
stuff like that on the PS2, and so I think
Hmm.
once developers kind of got the hold of, hey, we can make these games super cinematic. I think that's when things started really shifting away from gameplay, and because I know on the PS2, I feel like I wanted to play everything for PS2. I don't know if it's just because I was just a certain age, but once PS3 came out, I never got that feeling again that I wanted to play everything for PS3.
Hmm. Yeah, I do think that is definitely one of the points you could look at and be like, uh, I think gameplays shift to the obsessive chase for graphical superiority at the expense of gameplay, because there were some games during the PS3 generation and whatnot. There was a lot of games during the PS3 generation that were good graphics, especially for the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have you seen like gameplay of the original Last of Us
Oh yeah,
on the PS3? How the heck did they get that thing to run that?
I
It
know.
looks so good for PS3.
I mean,
Even Skyrim is pretty
I
impressive.
mean, look at Ascension, God of War Ascension. It looks spectacular. I mean, that looks like a PS4 game to me.
Mhm. Yeah, but God of War, was that the
That was the last God of War for PS3. Actually, the last God of War in that playstyle.
Ascension? Oh,
It's one of the underrated God of War games, in my opinion. I loved it. I thought the gameplay was spectacular. A lot of people don't like it because the story sucks. It really does. But
Mhm.
when you're not caring about story and you're more concentrated on gameplay, I think it's spectacular.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at like somebody doing a boss run. I could see this being if you told me this was a PS4 game, I'd say it's like yeah, it was like I would say looks like a PS 3 game that was ported to PS4 or
Hmm.
like a PS3 game that they last minute decided would come out on PS4,
Yeah,
but it definitely looks really really good and like yeah, I could see this on the PS4 100%.
especially the last boss. My goodness, the I can't, I remember just being blown away by the graphics on the last boss. It
Oh,
just
Electo and Tisiphone or whatever. Uh, that's what the like the big flying through the sky with like lightning. I'm just watching a
oh no, I'm talking
replay of
about
it.
the Kraken.
The Kraken. Okay, this is a Kraken. It looked like sky for a second. It's like, oh, this clouds? No, those are not clouds. Yeah, this is a Kraken. And there's lightning going off, and he's in the ocean. And yeah,
Like
that is impressive for a PS3 title for sure.
man, his face and everything, all the little details on his face. I'm like, oh man, it's so beautiful. I'm
Yeah,
looking at it too myself.
yeah. I kind of tend to agree with you that I feel like the PS4 and the Xbox One era was kind of where we took the dive into always online. And I
Hmm.
think once that word was introduced, it was a game over for everything. Not everything, obviously. I think that that games still have a lot of great things coming out and doing a lot of really good stuff. But I do think that was like a big hit and where a lot of people kind of where we started to see the rise of that sentiment in people of why are games not fun anymore.
Hmm.
You've seen that sentiment floating around, right?
Yeah.
And I think it started there because the phrase always online, and that's where we started caring about live service, microtransactions, and it felt like gameplay was no longer the main focus of making a great experience and then thinking what they can add later. And I think that is also one of those things that I'm most worried about with Elder Scrolls 6 is Skyrim came out in a time before I had heard the term live service, even though live services existed. That was like World of Warcraft, and that was it. Subscription based MMOs
Uh
was a
huh.
live service, and also League of Legends was out in 2011. But nowadays, I feel like it's almost not retroactively tainted, but I feel like there's gonna be some designed things from like ESO and whatnot that are gonna creep slowly and slightly into Elder Scrolls 6 that only really work in that online environment, but not in the single player one. And it's just not gonna feel as good as Skyrim did.
Mm.
Look at me, look at that. I can take any conversation and turn it into Skyrim. That is my superpower, dude. Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely
that's
understand
it.
that.
And I agree with that cutoff point as well because like I think I've mentioned I have this weird there's this weird cluster of games that I really like, and all of them came out in like 2010 to 2012. So Skyrim, Dark Souls, Planet Side, 2011, 2011, 2012. Um, League of Legends, which I guess that's its own beast. I don't even know if I could say I like the game or I tolerate it. The last Guitar Hero came out in 2010. Um, there, I don't know. There was a lot of stuff. Holy moly! I'm just taking a look at a lot of these things. But yeah, around that 2011, 2012, before we got new consoles. I think that is around where a lot of things shifted.
Yeah.
And I think that enough people at least are talking about it that we're going to probably in the next few years, if not starting this year, I believe that there's only so far that we can go with graphics. Like, from PS2 to PS3, that was absolutely insane. The graphical leap there.
Hmm.
But then PS3 to PS4, there were some games on the PS3 that looked like they could have been PS4 games. There were some games on the PS4 that looked like they could have been PS3 games. Um, and then PS4 and PS5, I think capability, I actually do think it was a larger leap than PS3 to PS4. Maybe I'm weird, but I genuinely think that was a larger leap. Um, and then we and then yeah, but I don't know how much further. I mean, you've seen the Unreal Engine 5 demos, right?
Uh, I don't know if I. Let's see. What games exactly?
There's not a lot of, I don't think there's a lot of games out for it, but there's a lot of demos that have been made in it where it's like, why are you showing me a picture of real life?
Okay, yeah, I saw the one where the girl is running around the caverns.
Yeah, it's a little unbelievable, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can't wait to
Um,
start seeing games like that. I mean, that does look spectacular. As long as the gameplay is good, though. I mean, yeah, I mean it'll be pretty, but it needs to have engaging gameplay.
exactly, and that was going back to my thing. It's like, Unreal Engine 5 is like huge, and spectacle and visuals are cool, but gameplay is why we have video games. If we want to look at something pretty, we have movies
Hmm.
that look better than Unreal Engine 5 because they film them in real life. And the movie theaters don't need to worry about graphics cards.
Thank you for listening to this podcast clip. If you want to watch more of the podcast, the full podcast is in the link in the description, along with my guest channel name. And if you would like to guest in a future podcast, please contact me and we shall talk so we can discuss many, many topics, more to come. Other than that, have a glorious day.